So I've introduced you to the stock flower. Now I've got lots of varieties that I'm going to introduce you to today, and the next one is Lisianthus. So I'll just grab that now for you. So Lisianthus are a hugely popular flower and certainly one of my favourites. So we've got the purple variety here today. Now my other snips. There we are. So removing that plastic from the bottom up, same process again. I'm going to take off the elastic, grab my gloves, and I've got some leaves to remove. So the Lisianthus flower, it is very prone to disease, so it's apparently not the easiest flower to grow. And that is partly the reason why it's higher in price as well. But a gorgeous flower, comes in white, comes in pink, and various pinks, and also creams and lemons as well. So the purple is also, there's a mauve, and there's a variegated one as well, which is really quite beautiful. So it's white and it's got purple edging around the tops of the petals, so really lovely. So I'm just taking one stem at a time, removing those leaves. Okay, so that bacteria has less to attach itself to. Okay, so there are some florists that prefer to do this process using the towel. And some will just use their hands as well, which I certainly did do as an apprentice, and wish I had have worn gloves to save my hands. So use the gloves, they're nice and gentle on the stems. And there's a lot less washing than using the towel. Okay, so I've got those removed. And I have a vase ready for the Lisianthus. Get those stems ready. Recut those into the bin. Again, on an angle, and in they go. So that's another vase ready and done, and we'll get on to the next one. I'll remove that bucket now. Now the growers and wholesalers will generally want their buckets back, so make sure you get them nice and clean for them, and then they're ready for them to collect, or you'll take them back to them. The next flower I'm introducing you to is the beautiful iris. So I've got the blue iris here. You can see these are very, very fresh because they're nice and tight. So any flower that is formed in a bud and then opens, we want in its bud stage. That's how we want to receive it. We don't want to receive it when it's fully open. And I've got some fully open ones here to be able to show you the difference. So taking that plastic off, again, bottom up, cutting off that elastic, throwing the plastic away, and I'll just get the open one so that you can see the difference there. Okay, so I've got some open iris here in almost all the stages. So we've got the beautiful tight bud here that you can see. Okay, so you can see that colour there, it's beautiful and vibrant. Then the next stage is this flower that's starting to open. So you can see there, it's starting to come out. Excuse me. Then this, it's really coming out to show there, that beautiful yellow centre that they have. They're such a striking flower. Again, one of my favourites, although I'll say that just about every single one. But they really are iris because they're a winter flower. So we'll see them in winter, late winter and early spring. And what I love is that beautiful yellow that comes out, and it's just the right time of year that we need to see that bright burst of yellow. So they're just gorgeous flowers. So that one's really fully open, as you can see there. Then these guys are starting to close up and shrivel up again. And that's because they've gone way past their use-by date. So it's at this point that we certainly shouldn't be seeing them at all, and that only our clients should be seeing them, or if we've got one of our own arrangements and that it's started to go off. So as you'll see through the progression there, we've got a really dark, solid, vivid colour. That's a great sign that your flowers are extremely fresh. Then, as they go through the process, we have them starting to fade, and this one's a very good example of where the colour is fading. What you'll see really close is also that the dehydration of the flower as well. Okay, so all the fluid is starting to go out of that flower. Okay, so it's dehydrating, and we know that one of the things obviously that they need to stay alive and staying fresh is water. Okay, now these iris are well over 7 days old, so that's why they're up to their use-by date. And then this guy is really dried out and well finished. Okay, so when you're looking for fresh flowers, you're looking for very vivid colours and tight buds. Okay, the flowers that don't start off as a bud when we receive them are things like gerberas, for instance. We won't receive them in a tight bud. We need to get them in their full form. However, tulips, iris, lilies, all those types of flowers, we want to get them in their tight bud form. So I'm going to remove those older iris. They're not ones that we want to be playing with today. And these beautiful fresh cut iris. Now you want to remove some of these lower leaves, and iris like to be grown in a fairly sandy soil, and so these leaves here can collect a lot of that, and so they can get quite dirty. So you see on the towel there, okay, there's quite a bit of mud and dirt that comes out of them. So you can remove those lower leaves, and then you can just go and run them under the sink to rinse them out a little bit before you put them into a vase. Okay, so let's just pretend that I've done that, recut them, and then I'm going to pop them into this vase here. Okay, so beautiful iris that we will get to play with a little bit later. The next flower I'm going to introduce you to is the sea holly. So it's an extremely long-lasting flower, and I'm going to just take the plastic off. That's all I have to do with this one. The leaves have already been removed. So that's nice and quick and easy. Take that off. Cut the elastic. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut those stems and pop them straight into a vase. Vase ready here. And there they are. I'm going to spread them out a little bit to give them some room to breathe. So incredible texture and colour that you receive from the sea holly. Not quite like any other flower really. So I'm going to pop those aside now and introduce you to our next flower, which is one of my absolute favourites. And the world's favourite, and that's roses. So these are locally grown roses. Please, wherever you are, get locally grown flowers in general, but particularly roses. Even if they're out of season, you will have a grower in your area that grows them in a hothouse. So that's absolutely best thing that you can do. So roses actually carry the highest amount of energy out of any other flower. So science has proven now, the reason why flowers make us feel so good, one of the reasons, is that they carry a positive energy. And roses rate the highest out of any other flower. So in their pure form, in their essence, or the oil I should say, they carry a positive of plus 300. Okay, so that's off the charts compared to anything else. So just to give you a comparison, an apple, and that would be an organic apple, is a plus 15. So plus 15 as opposed to plus 300 is quite a difference. So I'm going to take these plastic off. Roses carry a huge amount of moisture. They have lots and lots of petals on their blooms, and so they're full of moisture. So they really don't like plastic. It will make them sweat. Okay, so we want to get that off straight away and let them get some air. The thorns, of course, we want to remove only if we're putting them into a bouquet. So if we're just popping them into a vase, we don't necessarily need to remove the thorns. I know though today we're going to be making some mixed bunches, so we will need to remove them from that purpose. We're also going to be displaying these roses as single stems and in a box as well. So we're going to remove the thorns and the leaves. Now, this particular grower has done a wonderful thing and is selling these premium red roses in bunches of 12s. So that's fantastic for the florist. Previously, years and years ago, they did sell them and bundle them in 12s, which was great, selling them in dozens. However, I don't know, at least 20 years ago, some of the rose growers started selling them in bunches of 10s, and so to be able to sell a dozen red roses, you had to buy 2 bunches. So this particular grower has done a fantastic thing, and just in this red variety is selling them in 12s. Most of the coloured varieties you will receive in bunches of 10s still. Okay, so something to keep in mind if you have been taking an order, or you might want to do something with a dozen red roses. Keep in mind that you need to check with your supplier that they actually sell them in 12s, not in 10s. Okay, so to remove the thorns and the leaves from the roses, again, I'm going to use my gloves. Now, there are some old tools like rose dethorners that they're made out of plastic, or there's metal ones. I do not suggest using them because they do take often the stem, the outer edge of the stem off, and so of course it's not good for the flower being able to absorb and take in that water and keep it in. So we're not going to use those, we're just going to use our hands and the gloves. I'm also going to remove any petals that are damaged, just like this one here. Okay, so I'll leave that damaged one there. So it's just a matter of removing those. Then we want to recut that stem and get it straight back into water as quickly as possible. So all flower stems, once we cut them, so they've been cut from their source, they will start to seal over at the bottom of the stem there. So it's just like us, I guess, when we cut ourselves and then we start to scab up to heal ourselves. So flowers do it, and roses, out of all the flowers, do it the quickest. Okay, they're fantastic healers. So we want to be able to cut them as quickly as possible and put them back into water. Some rose growers, some really good rose growers, will actually cut their roses in water. So they remove them from their plant and then they'll take them back into their cutting sheds and cut them underwater. So I'm going to do the roses differently to how I've done the other flowers, where I've done them in bundles. I'm going to actually do them individually. So I'll recut that stem and pop it straight into the vase. And I'll just continue that process and putting it in. Now, if it was a particularly cold day or a cool environment, then I would just remove the leaves from each stem, as I'll demonstrate now. And then I would cut the roses all together all at once. which is far more efficient. However, the warmer the weather, the quicker the rose will start to seal at the base. Whoops, and then we've got a damaged one, which I'll remove. So as you can see, the gloves are protecting me from getting stung by any thorns. Not that there's a lot of thorns on these roses. So roses, as they have evolved, being grown in hothouses, is that they have little threat to them now, and so they're not producing as many thorns, which allows them to put more energy into creating a larger, stronger stem and also a larger bloom as well. One of the downsides to roses being grown in hothouses is that they don't need their scent anymore either, as they don't need to attract the bees for pollination. That's all being done on their behalf. So that is why many of the hothouse grown roses that you'll receive have little to no scent. So I'm leaving that one aside. Now I'm going to bundle them. And I'm just going to cut all their stems at once and then put them into the vase. So that needs to be done nice and quickly so that we can get them into water ASAP. Okay, so there's our gorgeous red roses, which we'll look forward to playing with shortly. Okay. The next flower I'm going to introduce you to is, again, one of my favourites, the Oriental Lily. So absolutely stunning flower, so popular and extremely long lasting as well. The only people or households that these flowers are not appropriate for are people who have asthma, and that it's brought on by pollens as well. So, and people who have allergies also. So it's just a suggestion. You might find that the client says, no, we're totally fine with those, but it is good to let them know if they're choosing them, is to just double check that, okay? So highly scented flower, absolutely beautiful. So this is the white Oriental Lily. And then we have a pink here as well. Okay, and this is how we want to purchase them, with really tight blooms, okay? So tight buds. Again, we need to remove the leaves. Now they have such gorgeous, really strong, healthy stems, okay? And I'm going to remove those leaves. I'm also going to remove any leaves that I notice that may be damaged. Okay, pop those aside, ready to be bundled into a vase. Okay, so that's the whites ready to go, and I'll put the two together in the one vase. So I'll mix them. So there's so many different varieties of the Oriental Lily, and in fact there's lots of different varieties of lilies as well. And over the course, you'll get introduced to them all. And we do find that some students at first find it a little bit challenging and difficult to notice the differences of the different varieties. But after time and practice with them, you'll get to know them very well and the characteristics of each one, so that you won't be getting them confused. So one of my favourites also is what's called the LA lily. I'm going to introduce you to that one shortly, and it's a blend of two different lilies. Okay, so the reason why I'm removing any leaves that are damaged, because the damaged leaves attract more bacteria. Okay, so it's like a little entryway welcoming the bacteria in. Okay, I will bundle them both together, and for efficiency I'm going to cut all of their stems all in the one, laying them on the bench because they're quite heavy, and cutting directly into the bin. There we are. Now I'll lift those up and straight into the vase. Okay, and they've still got room to open, as they will. I have got a vase here of ones which have been open, fully open, and for a client they would still be looking absolutely gorgeous. So these ones are almost 2 weeks old now, and still looking beautiful. Certainly not in a sellable state, so we want to be selling them when they're nice and tight, or even just starting to open. But this is how we want the customer to get to find them, in that sort of 10 to 14 day range. So yeah, absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the questions I get asked is, should we remove this pollen that you can see here on the flower? And yes, I do like to remove it. However, again, it does depend on the individual. Some florists will tell you that they last longer if you don't remove them. Some will say that it doesn't make any difference. And I personally haven't seen enough evidence to say that by removing them, I've shortened the lifespan of the flower in any way. And it just stops them from making a whole lot of mess. But I wanted to leave these ones to show you what they look like with the pollen. And I'm also going to demonstrate how to remove it neatly as well. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, so to remove the pollen, or the anthers actually, which is at the end of the flower there, that's what we want to remove, as these ones have been done, as you can see. Okay, so they're all removed, and so the flower's not actually getting stained from them either. So it's the flower can get stained from them, but so can your clothing or anything else within the vicinity as well. So you want to get a tissue, okay? And ideally, you want to catch the anthers before they've got the pollen around them like that, okay? So that's when they're not messy. So you can just get in and use your hands to remove them. However, now that they've pollinated, we need to get a tissue and get our hands around them. Whoop, and remove them that way, okay? So that's the cleanest way to be able to remove them without getting it stuck onto your hands, because it will stain. It does wash off eventually, but it will stain in that time period. And also then it doesn't damage and stain the flower as well as you're trying to take them out. So that's the best way to remove those. And then I'll pop those aside. Our next flower is another lily, which I said that I would introduce you to. And that's the LA lily. So we will remove the plastic. Okay, so again, removing those leaves. This one's got quite a bit of damage actually, so in quality controlling, this might be a bunch that I'd want to send back. So there's lots of damaged leaves, and there's also some broken heads there as well. So you can see there that there's lots of broken stems, so which means we should be getting another 3 flowers on this one stem. So this is a perfect example of a bunch that needs to go back to the wholesaler. So we will, or grower, but most generally wholesaler. So I'll remove the leaves so that we can see there's another 3 stems missing there. That one's got at least 1 stem missing. Okay, you can tell that the leaves are not great either. So this whole bunch has been damaged but wrapped up for sale anyway, so we wouldn't be happy about receiving those. So great for you to see that example. Okay. And so same manner, we're going to recut the stems and then we would pop them into a vase, okay? Of course with these ones we won't. Now I'll just tell you a little bit about the LA lily. Now it's been derived and created by flower growers by using 2 other lily varieties and crossbreeding them. So we've got the longiflorum lily, which is also otherwise known as the Christmas lily, and then we have the Asiatic lily, and they've put the 2 of them together, which makes it the LA lily. So it's got the characteristics of both and the best of the both. So really nice strong stems, big leaves and really large heads. They're a fantastic substitute for the Oriental lily, which we saw just earlier, for people who do have either asthma or allergies and don't want the scent of an Oriental lily, because the LA lily, as like the Asiatic lily and the longiflorum lily, are not highly scented. There is one more warning that we need to give you with lilies, and that's across the board, all of the lily varieties, is that they're extremely poisonous to cats. And so again, that is something that you would want to let your clients know, that if they have cats and they're getting flowers for their home, that lilies are not the best choice. All right, so I'll leave you with that, and then I'll be getting on to the next variety, which I'm going to introduce you to. The next flower I want to introduce you to, and it's the last flower I'm going to introduce you to in this class, apart from some foliage that we've got next, and it's called Alstroemeria. It's also known just as short as Alstro. It's also known as Peruvian lily. It's an extremely long-lasting flower and one that's generally fairly inexpensive. It's a really nice long, tall stems, and so it's something that's really good for people on a budget or just would like to have something that's nice and long-lasting. So look, they're not the most dramatic flower, but they give a lot of substance for a very minimal price. So I'm going to cut them off, remove damaged leaves and leaves lower than the water level, just like everything else. Okay. And then I'm going to pop them into a nice vase of clean water. I'm going to remove some damaged blooms and leaves. Sometimes that needs to be done with your snips. Okay. If you feel that by pulling on it might damage something else that's also around that area. So it's safer to just get in with your snips and remove those ones. Okay. Now, a question we often get asked is how many stems are in each bunch? And there's no single answer to that. There's no set standard. So like those roses I was talking about, they're generally in tens. Most flower varieties I find are in tens, but certainly not all, okay? So Alstroemeria is one of those flowers that I find varies so much, and usually we're looking at around 6 or 7 stems in a bunch, and in fact this one has 7 stems. There are some varieties, like a Singapore orchid, bunch of those, that they always come in 5s, so 5 stems in a bunch. A standard bunch of tulips or iris, then you'll generally find will be 10. Often you'll find that some maybe supermarkets or green growers are selling these types of flowers for half the price of what you might be able to sell them for. But if you actually go and count the stems, you might find that there's actually only 5 instead of 10. So as a consumer as well, and if you're buying from markets, be very wary of that. So again, I've got the stems ready. There's just a few more there I'd like to remove. Okay, bunch them up, recut. Okay, so I'm going to pop them in as single stems, but generally speaking, again, these lower priced flowers will often be sold as a bunch rather than a single stem. Now the next thing I'm going to introduce you to is some foliage, and this one's called viburnum foliage. During the course you're going to meet a whole range of different variety of foliages. So this is today's, and it's a really beautiful foliage, viburnum. Again, we do want to remove the lower leaves, but not too many, because foliage we can use in multiple ways, which you'll soon learn. So I'm only going to remove those very lower leaves. I'm not going to have a high level of water in the bucket. Foliage we generally go through and use up very, very quickly. Okay, it's really hardy, so nice thick, strong stems. And foliages in the past, particularly when I started my apprenticeship way back when, we often got foliages for free, and so we were able to pass them on to clients for free. However, now I find many of the foliages are actually more expensive than the cut flowers. So it's most important that they are priced accordingly and priced into our arrangements. So just removing those lower stems, just about done. Okay, and then I'd get them into a nice sturdy vase or even a bucket. You could use just one of the floristry buckets to pop them into. Okay, so you've met all of today's flowers for class 1. Next, we're going to get into some safety.